The microphones are hot, so be careful what you say, you folks.
I certainly will.
We're going to call this meeting of the Victoria Senior Advisory Committee to order, and we'll do a roll call. Sharon,
I'm here.
welcome. Nice to have you. Susan, welcome. I'm here. Richard?
Here.
Glad to have you here. Patrick is not here. And Jack?
I'm here.
And Lena, good to have you with us.
Here.
Welcome. We have visitors.
Yes, Jenna.
Jenna?
Yep.
I'm Jenna Smith,
I
I'm the
remembered
Parks
your
and
name.
Recreation Director.
Our new Park and Rec lady.
Yep.
And
Hi there, my name is Kelsey Platt. I am the Senior Property Manager for Ablelight Village here in Victoria, as well as Juniper in Minnetonka.
so the one here is the new one going up?
No, the Senior Living Ablelight that's right
Oh,
next door to Lions Field.
Yeah, back in the corner there.
Yeah, back in the.
Right. Welcome. It's nice to have you with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, we have petitions, proclamations, suggestions from the staff?
Well, I don't know about any suggestions or complaints or proclamations, but I do have some upcoming events.
All right, good.
Yeah.
I'll leave the suggestions and the complaints to the committee level. But just to get on your radar, there is a Health and Wellness Expo, which is going to be at the Chaska Community Center. It's held by Carver County. And if you want to get it added to your calendars, it is going to be January 11th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We also have our Light Up Victoria, our annual Light Up of our downtown area celebration coming up in about a couple of weeks, December 5th. It's extended from 1 hour to 2 hours. It's now going to be 5:30 to 7:30. You can see all the lights turned on in Victoria downtown. We have carolers, Santa, hay rides, luminary walks, llamas, games, a wide variety. So fun for all the ages. Yes,
The old
llamas.
Christmas llamas, right?
Yeah.
Usually they have Christmas
Can't
hats
have
on,
Christmas
too.
without our llamas.
And then there also will be a Toys to Tots donation with the Victoria Lions as part of that event. We do have boxes at the Victoria Recreation Center as well as at City Hall downstairs. So if you are interested in contributing to that, please feel free to. And then we also have a new event. Now this is something I don't typically put on here, but I know the committee has talked about bingo for quite some time, so I did want to introduce that. And it's not necessarily official yet because it will be in the Winter Parks and Recreation brochure, but again, I knew you would all be excited about this, so I wanted to include it on here. But there will be a bingo bash at the Victoria Recreation Center. Our Parks and Recreation Department is going to host it. It's going to be February 5th. There'll be more information to come in the winter brochure, so keep an eye out for that.
So we get a new Parks and Rec director, and we get bingo. I didn't know.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Great.
It's been a request for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. She gets on things, doesn't she? Gets it done.
And then I have some news from Carver County. Our Carver County Public Health Representative is not able to be here today, but they did want me to share a few news updates with you first. I spelled flu wrong in the PowerPoint, so please excuse that. But there is going to be COVID and flu vaccine clinics this November and December. If you are interested in that, that is free, and it will be in Chaska at the Carver County Community or Government Center. And then you may remember Emmanuel. He ran. He's been at a couple of these meetings.
Yep.
He also ran the annual meeting. He's no longer with Carver County, so they are hiring to fill that position. And they did let me know that this week they are conducting interviews, so hopefully we'll have somebody joining us at our next upcoming meetings, or at least relatively shortly.
Very good.
And with that, I will pass it back to you, Chair.
Anything from committee members? Proclamations, questions, comments? We're good. We'll move on to approval of minutes then. Do we have minutes from September 9th to approve?
That's probably the last time we met.
Man, it's been a
Oh,
while.
that seems a long time ago.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve this?
I so move.
Minutes? Jack, thank you. And do
I'll
we have a
second.
second? Sharon, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. It carries. We got good minutes. We're going to move on to new business. We're going to talk about the results of the survey.
Yes. Well, you guys may have remembered we've been talking about the Victoria Recreation Center a lot over this past year, especially over the last couple of months. It seems to be the big topic for this committee as part of our work plan, is really to identify, what do we want as a committee of that future of this space. And including of having these conversations at the committee level, staff has also done a community survey for Victoria residents and users of the Victoria Recreation Center. That was held from August of this year to October, and we did receive 315 responses, which is actually quite well. I think we were hoping for 300, so we got a little more than what we were anticipating. And really what that survey was is to ask the community, you know, what are your thoughts about the future of this facility? And also, what are your thoughts about the current state of the facility? It's a 20-plus-year-old building, and we know there's room for improvement. So we just wanted to see what the community's thoughts were regarding the space and what we can do to improve. As we've talked about multiple times, and I'm just mentioning again so it's on the record, and also just as a refresher for all of us, but that building is a partnership with the school district, Eastern Carver County School District, or School District 112. They operate the 2 ice rinks in there. Collectively, we call that the ice arena. And so they also own that part of the building. It's kind of a weird contract deal with lodging. However, they own that part of it and they manage that. So any rentals, any maintenance when it comes to the ice arena side, as well as the concessions, is through the school district. That contract is going to be up in 2032. 7 years away, and we know that's going to be very quick. And also with this upcoming election, we also know, and thank you, Jack, for bringing these, that the Chanhassen Bluffs Community Center is going to be built right next door, and there's going to be 2 ice arenas as part of that facility as well. So we don't necessarily know what the school district's future intentions are for that building, for this partnership, but we do know the contract is ending in 2032. And we do know that we need to start planning what we want for this building in the future, because once that contract ends, the facility will be completely owned and operated by the city, and that will give us the flexibility to really make that place shine the way that our community wants that to be. It could be continuing to have 2 sheets of ice in there. It could be repurposing a sheet of ice or 2 sheets of ice for other things. Carver County, Eastern Carver County Schools isn't the only one that uses the ice. We have a lot of organizations and associations that use that ice, as well as Holy Family. And knowing that this building is coming through, we're starting to have conversations with the school district now, as well as Holy Family, and as well as those associations of really what are they looking to have as part of, you know, their future growth. Similar to the questions in the survey, what do they really want in their community? So, looking at now, knowing that this referendum was passed in Chanhassen, knowing that this committee has been talking through these things, as well as the Parks and Recreation Committee, and having the survey complete, City Council is soon going to have their half-day workshop to really talk about this topic and to really understand, you know, what is the overall community's needs, what does the community want, and then putting a vision towards what the recreation center might look like for the future. Yes, Sue?
Maybe you'll cover this in the presentation, but with the school district having the sheets of ice through 2032, in the survey, would it be a two-part plan for the recreation center? Because are you going to wait to 2032 to do anything with the city side, the gym and the property, or how do you plan for that, not knowing to 2032? And do you know what income? I mean, does the school district share the income that's generated from the ice rental?
Yeah, those are both really good questions. I'll answer the last one first. So the ice rentals 100% go to the school district because they operate and manage that side of the building. So if the city would take that over, we would take care of the rentals, we would hire the staff for that space.
And you'd have the income from it.
Just keeping on that same mindset of funding, and this is something council just talked about at their last workshop. So if anyone is really interested in looking at the financials of the recreation center, I do recommend watching last Tuesday, November 12th budget workshop related to the CIP as well as the recreation center funding. A majority of the funds that we receive come from the school district. It's part of that contract. They pay to be operating within that space. So the building itself is self-sufficient. However, we know once the school district leaves, that building will no longer be self-sufficient. We have to rethink how we operate that space. Now, to your first question, implementation is probably going to be very different depending on what that vision and what the amenities are going to be for that
Okay.
space. I think depending on what, the community really wants, whether they say, we want more meeting rooms and more conference spaces, we could probably put that in different areas of the building or expand and not have to wait for the ice arena. Or if they say, we want a indoor playground, well, we might have to wait a little bit on that.
Okay.
So it
That-
really
that
depends
makes
on that
sense.
Yeah.
larger vision. of the space.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea, Alyssa, on the timeline when the city would let us know? I mean, is there anything in the contract that says we get a three-year notice or anything like that?
I'm sure there's something in the contract, and I'm looking at Jenna if she remembers off the top of her head. The contract, and I'm not even lying, is probably this thick.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big binder. There probably is something in there, but we've been pretty active within the last year of talking to the school district, knowing that this facility is a possibility. So yes, there will need to be some termination clause that we'll have to follow, and the school district will have to follow legally. But we'll have conversations well before then to know like they're not moving forward with re-upping the contract. I'm guessing, just in basic conversation, they probably wouldn't continue the contract as is, but instead they'd probably just be a renter.
Is the only sheet of ice that the school district owns the one between the two middle schools with inflatable dome? Because I think that might be the only one that that stands on their property.
I don't know. I know they have another sheet of ice. I don't know where.
Okay,
Are you talking Chanhassen?
no, the school district, District
Oh.
112.
How
Pasco
about
does have a sheet of ice somewhere.
Holy Family? How does Holy Family fit into the ice rink?
Yeah, so we do have two ice rinks. The West rink, which is our newer rink built in 2008, is all of it's operated by the school district, but the primary user is the Chanhassen Storm.
Yeah.
And then the East rink, which is our older rink, the primary user is Holy Family. Holy Family rents from the school district.
Okay.
So when we're having these conversations of what the future is looking like for these and what the needs are, Holy Family is one of our first phone calls because they are, one, the high school that happens to be in our community, and two, they're a primarily user of the space currently. So one of the things that you probably reviewed in the survey, and I sent that to you about 2 weeks, a week and a half ago, is that we received quite a bit of feedback of what the future of the space is looking like. And as the workshop is coming up with City Council, one of the things that they've asked this committee specifically to do is, one, start having conversations about what your envision and your wants, or what you represent, the community's senior population might want for any sort of space, any sort of senior facility or senior focused facility. And we've had those conversations, but two, do some insights and analytics related to what the survey says. What do you glean as important information that you see as part of the survey results? What should staff take back from the survey results and bring to council? The one thing that we also want to know is that the survey results, obviously we had 315 people take it, and I think there's about 25% of those users, there's demographic data on the lower end of the survey, happens to be 55 plus, but that doesn't represent the entirety of Victoria's senior population.
Right.
So it might not have senior programming high on the list in like future programming needs, but you've talked to your neighbors, you've talked to your friends, we've had these conversations that they might actually be a priority to some users, they just didn't take the survey. So making sure those or those notes are also being expressed as well. You really are the voice of this population of the community. Yes, Sue, you are.
That's a scary thought.
And you've all done such a great job doing that. So we just want to get this written down in a way that we can share with City Council when it comes to that workshop in January. So with that, I really don't have much for a presentation. I do have the survey results open on my computer if we have any questions. Sending those to you in advance, we're not going to walk through those, but I can definitely pull them up. And then just really hearing from you, the committee members, what are you thinking? What did you hear? What can we do better to improve on? I'm going to step away from the mic for a second and hopefully pick up the microphone at the podium.
Oh, there you go.
One of the things that we do at the city council level when we have these strategic conversations and other committees, we're gonna have this conversation at the Parks Committee in December at their next meeting, is ask the same questions about what did you glean from the survey results? And we utilize these 3 questions to help us generate thoughts and summarize thoughts. Now the 3 questions are, what are we doing well? What did you hear from the survey of what we're currently doing well with the recreation center? What if people want to keep? We don't want to remove anything that we're doing or people are excited about. What can we do to improve? There's a lot of things in there that talk about improvement. And we know that there's a lot of things that we can do to improve. And then the last one is similar to the second one, but what are we missing? We know we might be missing certain facilities or certain programs or certain things in that facility, and we want to gather what maybe some of those areas are. And I'm going to already add one to this because we've been talking about this for quite a while, and I haven't added it yet because I wanted to chat with you guys about it first. But one of the things that this committee has talked about quite a bit is that we are missing in our community, and specifically that space is an area for people just to gather, kind of like a coffee shop atmosphere where people, anybody, but specifically having that coffee hour for seniors where we can have natural gathering space, then we can also program that too. So people can also come there and have donuts in Victoria, or we can do other type of programming and just have that gathering space for people to come, sit, play cards, play games, whatever that have you. So I'm gonna add that because I see head nods to that what are we missing? We've talked about it quite a bit.
Melissa, a question about the methodology on the survey or
Yeah.
results. I read through a lot of those comments. Has anybody tabulated those? Because I started counting like how many people want a sauna, how many people want a swimming pool, but there's so many of them because a lot of people had comments. It'd be nice to see those tabulated. Like what was the number 1 suggestion to add? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
The only problem is though that this was what portion of the total
Yeah, space.
committee, total possible response.
I think one thing that would be really helpful is to mail the survey to any of our population who are getting their utility bills mailed. Because in polling my neighbors and seniors that I know here in the area, they just don't have access internet-wise. So I don't know that we're getting a whole lot of senior feedback if they don't have access.
Yeah, remind us how the survey was administered or how it was distributed.
Pull that up. We did the survey similar to how we've done our other surveys in the past, specifically the Parks Survey of 2023. So the survey was included in our Parks and Recreation brochure, as well as social media. That's a big one. We had flyers at the Victoria Recreation Center, City Hall, and then we brought them to any of our community events and pop-up events. So if you think within that time frame, truck rodeo, any of the Donuts in Victoria events, anything that we can hopefully push out to just get people informed that this survey is here. And then of course our website too. There's limited funding when it comes to these type of surveys. It costs thousands of dollars to do mail-in, so we do have to be budget conscious when we're talking about, mailing out surveys of this nature. We just try and hope to push it out as much as possible. The other positive to this that we did glean from the demographics is that 25% of the people that took this survey are 55 plus, which we thought was a really interesting number.
A big percent, I would think.
And it's actually representative of our community. 25% of Victoria's population also happens to be 55 plus.
There was a spot in here that had a percent that didn't even know we had a rec center. I'm like, oh, okay.
We do hear a lot of that actually at the front desk.
Do
"Oh,
you?
you found the recreation center." They're like, yeah, we had no idea this is here. We've lived in Victoria 10 years.
Oh, really?
And they live just around the corner.
Well, there's not a need if you're not, at the current time, if you're not fitness oriented, or if you're not a hockey, looking at this first one, 160 responses out of the 315 have visited but aren't members. I mean, were you there for voting? Were you there for a hockey game? Were you there for whatever? And actually down below too with like fitness classes. They used to have a lot of fitness classes for seniors. Now you can go, but they're, other than like donuts and a few things, and if you don't play pickleball or work out, or, well, a number of people use the walking track. There's nothing to bring them to the recreation center unless they want to go for fitness-related stuff.
One thing I noticed was that there seemed to be good consensus that it was easily accessible. It's in a good location. I think that's important because, you know, my bias is to add some kind of senior programming dedicated to seniors, and that's a good place to do it because it's easy to get to, you know.
A lot of parking.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it is a very central location, and it was built very nicely where it provided enough parking to host the multiple activities that it has. Maybe not on a double header of a hockey night. You might have to walk. But there's still parking available. I did pull up. This is something that we asked as part of the survey to the people that took it on, you know, the amenities, the features that they would like to see, you know, constructed and developed. And this is just kind of a summary of, and I can blow this up a little bit, what people might be looking for. As you can see, and this is what we've heard for a very long period of time, is that this community wants access to water, whether that's an indoor swimming pool, a splash pad, access to a lakefront beach. And this is something that we've earmarked and council has earmarked as, you know, a priority for us, especially as we're expanding into our south and west growth areas, looking for opportunities in that regard. We know this is a huge need, so this does not come surprising to us. But you can also see other things in here like the sauna and steam room, fitness studio and classrooms, the indoor play areas. The walking track is a big priority or a middle priority, depending on if people know it exists or not. We added a climbing wall in there, just various different types of amenities that you might find in other community centers, but you might also find on the private side as well. And I passed it already, but I did see, we did have a senior center space here that got about 30 responses, which out of 300, if you think is pretty good, about 10%. Again, this is something for the committee to talk through. Is this still a huge priority? And I think we've kind of answered at least the gathering spaces, having that area, and then there's opportunities to program that based on what the community needs are for programming after that. We also had in things that we've talked about in the past too, like the arts and crafts room, the wood shop classroom. That could be a priority for folks, or at least a desire for folks. The other partner that needs to be engaged when we get to the workshop is the Victoria Library as well. They're obviously talking about what the future of the Victoria Library looks like, and just libraries in general, what kind of programs they hope to be offering in the future. We don't necessarily want to compete with government organizations that are in our same community or nearby. So making sure that, you know, we're thinking about what this space looks like, knowing that the library is a partner, and that if they also want to have a wood shop in their future library space, maybe that's not the best. Maybe we shouldn't have that, or vice versa.
Recordings to do.
And then, yes, we did have an opportunity for folks to put in things that we didn't have listed. So there's kind of a general, we do see outdoor pool versus indoor pool, a cold plunge, ice arena improvements. It's not letting me scroll. Yoga studios. A lot of these happen to be repeat of what we saw above, other than the outdoor pool section.
Excuse me, Alyssa, going back up a little. So when you look at meeting rooms and some of this, what is the conversation with the city council or Park and Rec about the pavilion, Lions Pavilion. I know they're paying it off with, or whatever, but the city really owns that and manages it. And that is a big space that's, I think, underutilized. I know that the income comes from rental, and there's no staff devoted to that. I mean, it's wired for technology, and, that building, other than, I don't know, the building on weekends and some evenings is rented, but what is the use during the day? What is the use during the day, and has that been in the conversation at all? Would we be duplicating something if that space is available during the day and, meeting rooms, having that available?
Well, great question. I do think, and I'm just trying to pull up, we do have a utilization feature, and I'm trying to see if the Lions Pavilion is on here, but I'm not seeing it. Anyways, for the Lions Pavilion, it happens to be our most expensive rentable space. So when it comes to like your general meetings, what you might find for like an HOA meeting, other type of meetings that we frequently get asked about are like association meetings. Typically they want to go Girl Scout, Boy Scout meetings on the cheaper side. Hence the reason people navigate towards either council chambers or the recreation center. The costs of those are relatively low compared to the higher cost of the pavilion. Also note that the pavilion is pretty regularly used. You're right, it's not as regularly used during the day. We see most of our action at the evening times as well as the weekends. I don't know if I'd classify it, and I'm looking at Jenna too, because she's been really delving into our rental spaces throughout this last couple of months, if we would classify the pavilion the same as a meeting room.
No, HOAs or Boy Girl Scouts, they don't need a space that big. They probably can get by with 30, something that can accommodate 30 people. But when we talk about, like, where are you gonna hold this bingo bash?
It'll be at the recreation center
At the rec center,
In the gym?
in the multipurpose room.
in that other one.
In that little room?
It's a fairly large
Oh, the
room.
daycare room
Yeah.
back there. Okay. It just seems like a space that certain hours is underutilized. And what about when the new fire station is built? Are there going to be meeting rooms in the new fire station or in this one as well?
There will be at least one meeting room, but council hasn't decided if that's going to be open to the
public.
general public
Okay.
or how they're
Yeah.
going to navigate through the renting of that space. Since
Okay.
It happens to be an emergency building.
That makes sense.
Comment, Alyssa, as I read through the list of options there, it seems to me that a lot of these things could be included in the same space.
Multi-purpose.
Check a lot of boxes with the right kind of building. And if you got a good architect that could kind of envision the space that we have currently and how that could be configured, you could check off quite a few of these things and use that space in a variety of ways.
Absolutely. And the purpose of the survey isn't necessarily to gather like thoughts on having one large room, because that probably will end up, if these are really a priority, that's most likely what it will be. Where you have a room that can be multi-purpose. Our multi-purpose room is a great example of how we utilize that space today. Use it for yoga, sometimes workout classes, meeting rooms. You have Donuts in Victoria in there. It just is a wide variety of use. This was just more to gather, is this purpose use something that people are interested in? So then we can gather the size, because the size for a cycle studio might be a little different than what you might find for a woodshop classroom, or you might need garages for those areas versus a racquetball room or an arts and crafts room.
In the current recreation center, doesn't it have 2 locker rooms or not? Or
There are locker rooms that are utilized by the hockey associations and schools, and then there's the public use. And then there's a men's
okay,
and
but
women's
didn't you
locker.
say the public use ones aren't used very often? Was that looked at in the remodel as possible space? That's down the hallway by the offices.
I would say that they're probably not as used as you would see in like a larger fitness facility,
Okay.
but they are used by our population, so it's something that we could potentially, if funding were available, be able to remodel the space and still have that amenity, but maybe utilize the space differently.
Yeah, that would be impacted depending on if you do some of this aquatic stuff, those lockers become
Yeah.
Yeah, and then of course, if we did have any sort of aquatics, if we were focusing on locker rooms, that would be something that construction-wise, it might completely alter how it lays out, because with locker rooms with swimming, you can't have them be going through different departments and areas. It would have to be a direct access, so that would be something that there would need to be a structural remodel included in the design.
So going back to those 3 questions, just because I know that we're always limited on time, is there anything, and starting with that first one, that when you think about the rec center, that we're doing well today, based on the survey, based on your own insights into the space? And with that, I will also lead into the second question of things that we can improve upon too.
I know from personal standpoint, in the winter, I mean, I will use the walking track, which is nice. The fitness center, I think the remodel, the equipment is really nice in there. It is nice to have the other side for classes, but it gets loud and it's limited, so possibly a separate area for facility, you know, for a workout area. It's nice to have the pickleball. But you're right, there is a lot of space. It could be repurposed better to have multi-level activities. But the current fitness area itself and the walking track, I don't know if, you have to bundle up because you're walking around a sheet of ice. But I think they're very well maintained.
I've seen that too.
I do have one suggestion, just because my mother moved in with me and she walks with a walker, and she's
Right.
on that track, you know, every day once the weather turns like this. There are no handicap accessible doors in the interior of the building. So she does require a worker within the building to open doors for her, and going into the fitness center, going into the walking track, because they're heavy. And I think if you go into like Cheon Rec Center or whatever, they have a handicap, right? So we just want to be as accessible.
Yeah, the only ones that are there are the entrance doors.
Yeah,
They're the only ones that are handicapped.
correct, right? They see her coming in and they're ready to help her, but I think for me, you know, dropping her off for 2
Yep.
hours, you know, it's a little worrisome.
Inside, yes.
Yeah.
And if she wanted to go into the gym,
Yeah.
she'd either
does she get-
basically have to come in the back door or go down the elevator,
There's
wouldn't
no
she?
ramp there.
And then come back, because you've got those 3 stairs.
Well, and Patrick's not here, but I have to say she is a weekly visitor of his library. She's reads about 10 novels a week. And she loves the little library there, but she can't get to it,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's one of the things that just accessibility.
That's a good point.
And again, I'm in my 50s, so we're all seniors here, but I think for the older seniors in our community, accessibility, right? Do they have access to our information? Do they have access to our programming? You know, I think that's where my mind is kind of the 70-plus members of our community.
The hard part about some seniors is they don't have access to technology now that we don't have a paper, you know, a city newspaper or anything, so.
And one of the things I realized in the surveying, just talking to my neighbors and the seniors I know in the community, I know several right there at the flats, they do a lot of their programming in Minnetonka. They do a lot of their senior ongoing learning in Eden Prairie. I'm looking at this right now. Like the lifelong learning options and opportunities aren't necessarily housed just in their community center. They're in the firehouse, they're in the schools, and that helps a lot of our seniors be connected, I think, to the community. So they meet the firefighters, they meet people in the schools, and So one of the things when I'm thinking about programming for the rec center is, do we want to call it a senior center or do we want to have programming space for a lot of opportunities, right? And then can we also get them into Holy Family once in a while for just to be in the community or in the firehouse? Like you said, I saw the new space. There's beautiful programming rooms in there. They could meet some of the fire staff and just now they have connection to the community. Options, yeah.
The one thing that struck me was part of the building, I think, is way underutilized.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's that lower floor. But didn't somebody do a utilization study, like how often is each room used? How often is the gym used? How often is that multi-purpose room used? So that would give you some indication. It seems like there's a little bit of wasted space.
There definitely can be some repurposing of some areas. That is definitely something that we've looked at in the past when we were talking about the park system plan, is our utilization rates. And then luckily our Parks and Recreation programming, or program, Civic Rec, allows us the ability to quickly pull that statistic together. And that's something that we'll also have for the workshop, is really how often are these areas utilized. Just because somebody asked me this the other day, our gym is probably our largest rented area or utilized area. We have a utilization rate from 2023 of 31%. That might seem really low. However, we're talking about the entire time that space can be rented, from 5 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. Like, that's where that statistic is coming from. Pretty much 365 days or whenever that space is open. And it's not also including the open gym times that people might just be in there because they're a member. So that happens to be our most frequently used area. And then on top of that, thinking through our other meeting room spaces and our other spaces, either in the facility or in our park shelter areas, we did hire a recreation coordinator at the beginning of this year. You may have met him. His name is Mark. And he works for us specifically trying to improve the utilization of our park spaces. He helps out when it comes to any park shelter rentals. He's helped increase our utilization rates. He helps renters if they have any questions. And he's really helped make sure that you can have a completely online experience if that's what you desire for reserving any of our spaces. So we're hoping, looking at 2024's results at the end of the year, that some of these numbers will be increased.
You brought up a point about people going to Minnetonka. I know Eastern Carver County Schools has programs, Chaska has programs, Chan has programs, Eden Prairie. And you also mentioned technology. I mean, if there was technology classes and lifelong learning things offered here, I wonder if people would have to go that far to utilize them. We are fortunate, we have a lot of options, but because there aren't things right here offered, they seem to travel. That doesn't mean we need to duplicate, and you have to start somewhere. All that programming, you've got the Eden Prairie Senior Center. It doesn't, I mean, you have to grow that, and start somewhere.
Yeah.
And that's, where we also rely on our partners. Carver County Library, specifically Victoria's branch, does a great job already doing technology classes that, it's leveraging them, it's helping advertise them and bringing their programs, or at least getting them into the library, getting people into the library, or if they want to host it at one of our facilities, giving them that space too. And that's just one example of the many, many activities they do. And I'm speaking for Patrick right now.
Yeah, I was gonna say Patrick would be able to tell us all. Yeah.
The thing that strikes me is that it would be nice to try to kind of duplicate, like, whenever it's time to build a new library, it seems to me that'd be a logical place for it, right next to the rec center or attached to it or combined with it. The fact that the new fire station is kind of, half a block away, it makes sense too that becomes kind of the hub, what happens in the community. So I'm kind of concerned about the West project, the Downtown West project, and if that diverts, people away from it.
Away from it.
But it seems to me that the rec center is in an ideal location, one of the pluses that came up. So we ought to try as much as possible to expand on that site and add other services there or other programming things. Whether it's a senior citizen center or a library or a city hall, you know, instead of having places or stuff in 4 or 5 different locations, try to put them all right there. I don't know how much land the city owns there, but it seems to me there's a lot of land there that you'd have room to add a swimming pool, you know, or to add a library if you know, designed it. And you get the parking lots already, so you don't have to duplicate those expenses.
I think also one thing the recreation center has going for it, if that space can be repurposed, like the Chaska Lodge, they're connected to the Chaska Community Center. All their fitness programs are there.
You're right.
And they can walk from one thing to another. They can do fitness. They can
Isn't
do
there an art center there too, or a gallery?
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think that's closing. That's by the Carver County Art Consortium. I think they're not going to utilize that space anymore.
But that's an example of what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
It
so
seems like
you're
Chaska's done a good
under
job.
one roof and,
they
you
just
know,
keep going.
yeah, and the coffee space, or I mean, you know, general, if it's there, and then classes and everything. So you'll get, and yeah, that's one thing it has going for it. If it could be repurposed and offer some meeting spaces and activities, and offer some probably different fitness classes. I mean, a lot of places have silver sneaker classes and other things. Then you're gonna draw people for that, as well as my experience. We're in an area that people love to learn. Start with some of those lifelong learning programs or other activities. It's a way to get people not only to be mentally fit, but physically fit as well.
When you look at this deal, it's not a rec center, it's a community center.
Yeah,
And our rec center could easily become a community center.
yeah.
I think it's kind of,
And I think in
And
my
that's what
polling of
Chaska is,
people,
too.
I think in my polling of older adults that I've been talking to, rec center didn't sound like it was inclusive for seniors. Community center felt like, you know, and that's,
you'd find something for them.
yeah, so
It's a
rec
name change.
maybe sounds just, you know, like for youth, and that's great. But we can have a youth and community space, perhaps.
This was a referendum to get the
Yes.
Chan Rec Center. And it was interesting how they did their financing there. Aren't they adding a 0.5% sales tax on? They get a lot of people in the community. And this maybe is premature to ask, but with looking at the rec center here, would it have to be a referendum, or could it be absorbed, or would there be bonds? But that, you probably don't know that until you know the amount of what will be done.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Hard to tell when
The
you
dollar
don't know
amount,
the price
yeah.
tag. Yep.
Yeah.
Any other?
Exciting.
I think we're a good discussion.
I'm
I
not
have so many
sure, I've lived here 11 years now, and I've gone to Minnetonka Community Center to do driver training. I've done it in Chanhassen. I've done it in Eden Prairie. So we get around. We couldn't keep a grocery store here for a while because we weren't using it enough, or there were others very close. So we're in competition with lots of other places for.
Well, yes and no. When
be
Holly
careful.
first started, they used to have driver safety classes here.
Did they?
Yes, and they used to have some other things. And at that time, she would partner with Chanhassen. We invited them to go to ball games, to some trips, and do some stuff. But she was one person. So you've got to grow that stuff. People go because it's not here.
And I think we're in a different era now, anyway,
Yeah.
because of the construction. all the
There's a
buildings.
lot more people too.
Yeah,
Yes.
so we can probably, yeah,
Well, and
We can probably
I
get
do
more
community education training for
Yeah.
other communities. And I can say that we're kind of a small group of people who are available to a lot of communities. So it'd be very easy to add the 55 plus, you know, all these different programming. I'm looking at even just Eden Prairie. I know a lot of these people who are doing these. So we could probably add it if we do have the space and the availability. I just have one quick thought, because based on the survey and wanting more social gathering space, what I did hear from a lot of people was wanting to have access to an open space where they could get snacks and coffee and things, and also bingo, cribbage, manja, or
Yeah.
and then puzzle exchanges. A lot of, you know,
Yeah.
in my house right now, I have 2,000 puzzles that we can exchange.
You don't want puzzle
Yeah.
exchanges. We started that in Chanhassen.
Yeah, it's
Within,
huge.
but you have to maintain them.
Yeah.
And you get hundreds of them.
But
all
to
of a
get
sudden-
people to get, I think it's just one more reason to get together at the rec center and meet people, you know?
You hit on a really critical issue, though, is who's gonna do this?
Yeah.
You know, you gotta have the staff before you start adding programming. So
Sure.
it would be great to try some of these things in the space that we have to see what kind of response there was. But who's gonna do it? I mean, is it Park and Rec? Do you have a dedicated senior citizen person on your staff?
Or-
10% time or something? But until, it seems to me that the staff has to come first.
Yeah.
You know, and once you get the staff, then you can try different programming and see what response you get.
Even with the bingo bash, that's great, and people are gonna come for bingo. But then what's next? You know, and not bingo, bingo people and mahjong people aren't the same. I mean, I'm not being mean, but, and we've talked as a committee for the last 2 or 3 years, and we've even offered, November is Alzheimer's Awareness Month. We've got a great Alzheimer's Association. You know, start doing some education here and then build on that, you know, and you establish a database of people and you get different, but you're right, you need some devoted staff and space, and it's moving in a good direction. So,
You know, based on the one deal we did where we had the, what do we call it, the day where Senior Citizen Day or something?
or the expo.
The
The
expo.
expo. Yeah.
There's a whole ton of ideas from there that people that came and set up booths that would do programming. You know, you could do something every week with the different organizations that showed up there, and it'd be useful stuff, I think. But again, you need somebody to call them up and schedule them and get them here, right? And reserve the space.
And then when you're talking seniors, there's many seniors that don't have the ability for transportation, you know, to come to these things. So we really, you know,
I think we're pretty fortunate when you look at WeCab and Southwest Prime,
yeah, but they don't, yeah.
they don't
WeCab
wanna
is-
utilize it. WeCab is,
But even WeCab does do
And
monthly
it-
special appointments.
Yeah.
to Take people to bingo.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's, and they're expensive for some of them.
You know,
That's what I've been told.
That's a good point that you raised, though. I don't
Yes.
know if you saw the article in the paper about the Prime or the Southwest Transit
Yes.
expanding. They're gonna have driverless cars through Eden Prairie at certain designated spots so you can get to the transit centers. Victoria, I mean, they're like the second place in the country, I think, or the state that is adding that service. But that would be a great kind of forward-looking project for the city here to do, is to get some kind of transportation on
Yeah.
demand that would, you don't need a car then, you can just.
Well, some of them don't even drive anymore. so-
Exactly, well, that's the point, the car
Yep.
comes up and it pulls up to your front door and picks you up and drives you.
Yep.
In this case, they
but
only
how are
go to
they gonna
designated spots.
access that? You need an app to do that.
Yeah, or a phone call or something, but if you think down the road, transportation is critical for senior citizens and that kind of a service. Either expand WeCab or get a driverless car system for Victoria.
And I will say, we're having
regular conversations with Southwest Transit, just
Yeah.
about the
Good.
need of transit in the
Good.
city.
This seems to be a really well-run, innovative.
It does seem to be.
organization to get stuff done. Yeah.
And they do mall walker transport.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just
They're all
gonna
handicap
say-
accessible. the
Right,
vehicles
yeah,
are.
and there's a lot of people here that do mall walking, you know, and would love to get transportation, so.
One thing, I help a couple older people who don't drive. And I keep saying to this one, why don't you use Southwest Prime or some, it's door to door, but you need someone to walk you into somewhere too, which is a really hard thing to do. So you are limited with that. I think WeCab might do that, but I don't know how much. Transportation is not an easy topic, is it?
But that would help to get to Bingo Bash, right?
Yeah.
Might have more turnout if we.
They could drop you off at the door.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Melissa, have we done what you want?
No.
Giving you info?
Have we given you,
Because we technically still have at least 8 minutes if you're always
Okay.
willing to go.
but have
over.
we given you enough to work with?
I think so, and I'm just gonna review the stuff I wrote, just because we write it on Post-it notes, so we can take them
Yeah.
off if we want to. We can always add more, if we're missing something. This is just summaries of the conversations that we heard. So what do we do well? The walking track, huge priority, as well as the fitness center. Heard good feedback on that. What can we do to improve? Fitness studio space gets a little claustrophobic in there, gets a little loud.
Yeah.
Accessible spaces. It's a huge need for that facility. And then, I can read, multiple services, expanding on that site, thinking about it differently. And that leads into what are we missing? A community center. I have that big and bold at the bottom. Lifelong learning opportunities, and then gathering space, social as well as activities, games, fun things like that. Gives people something to do other than just drink coffee while they're talking and being together and having that social environment. Now, is there anything that you want
Well,
to
with
add
the
to
survey,
this?
I agree with the aquatic things. We need a pool and a sauna and a ASAP.
How serious, I mean, you mentioned that pools come up all the time. How serious is the city? I mean, that's been talked about for a long time. I know people wanted it at this, but the cost to put a pool,
Yeah,
I think, was maybe an additional $32 million. And that's not only the expense.
maintenance.
Because I know years ago, probably 20 plus years, the pool's been talked about, but that's still on their radar somewhat.
Yeah, the city did a pool study in 2016 for the recreation center site. It was indoor and outdoor, and at that time, I think it cost us roughly $12 million to install, but it would be a negative balance each year of like,
Maintain.
Yep.
I'm not gonna say quite up to $500,000, but it's quite expensive to maintain a pool. And at that time, city council decided to disregard the topic. That being said, we hear over and over again that the city wants access to water. So maybe it could be a pool, maybe it could be other opportunities that we're not thinking of. We're the city of lakes and parks. What can we do with our lakes as well? That gives us
That's
that same access to water that people are looking for, that's not necessarily as costly as a pool.
Alyssa, are there grants or funding available if the pool is handicap accessible?
I think
Or-
by requirement, it has to be handicap accessible.
With the lifts and
Yeah, I
access? Okay.
couldn't tell you anything about funding for providing a pool.
I'm just like thinking of Safari Island's pool right now, and it's utilized a lot by the senior community there. You know,
I'm sure, yeah.
yeah.
There's a senior living space, I forget the one in Waconia, and they have a pool that you can, I mean, people can use and pay an admittance during the day.
Yep.
Yeah, new perspectives.
Right.
Anything else? Any if you think of anything, I'm just a phone call away too.
I just have a tiny suggestion too. I know in Delano, they do have a very experienced team and the senior center there, Nick Neaton. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that senior center, but it is utilized every single day. Not to mention they provide lunches every day. That local restaurants provide lunches to them. So it is a very utilized, it'd be a good place to go for just even shadowing, hearing, knowing, from even a mentorship and development standpoint, from programs to just the volunteers, because it is well ran with a lot of volunteers and of course some paid workers too. But it's definitely, it's in the city hall there in Delano.
It's in the back of the city hall. I would agree with that, but I'm a little biased. One of my relatives is a senior coordinator over there.
Well, and on that note, we were all at the Aging in Place conference, and we did talk about visiting Watertown's meeting. I wonder if maybe we could, as a group, visit a couple of these centers just to get some input and ideas.
I was to a couple of them this summer.
Got to be careful on open meetings laws.
Yeah,
But Alyssa facilitated us going on our own to visit places.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good idea, I think. Keep encouraging that, you know, Delano or.
I can
other
keep
places.
sending. So yeah, this summer we did that activity, and we sent out a couple of opportunities as well as dates. You know, when they're open, what their addresses are, and then if anyone wants to go on their own, they're absolutely able to. You can go in pairs, but as soon as you hit 3, then we run into open meeting law violations.
Yeah, so it's great that Jack visited Eden Prairie and brought home the little students to work there, so.
Not there. What do you think of the Eden Prairie Senior Center? It's an older building, not real accessible.
Every time I go, and I
We
don't
have a
go
lot.
real often, but there are people sitting drinking coffee, and unfortunately, it's men in one room and women in a different room. But,
I love
and I went for the.
I don't know why.
Senior citizen, the insurance thing they're on right now. I went to that a couple of weeks ago, and they had a good turnout of 15 or 20 of us. So and they have a woodworking shop, which you can always hear. So there are people down there, but I don't know how busy it is continuously.
Yeah, I think for the mail, I mean, in our facility, I think the hardest thing is the males have nothing for them. I mean, and our facility is independent and active living, but in the area, in the town. So the woodworking is really good because then the men have things to do. I think us women go out and find things more than they do. But I'm just saying, from my perspective, what I've seen is they need things. You guys need to suggest, what would you like to do?
We need a lot. We don't have time for
You are
that. We have 2
needy.
minutes left.
Yeah, you are needy.
We're very needy.
Yeah, yeah,
I think we're ready to wrap here.
yep.
Unless anything, final comments from you?
I do not. Thank you again, committee, for another
Thank you.
wonderful meeting. And thank you, Jenna and Kelsey, for both being here. Taking the time out of your day. Absolutely.
We have a motion to adjourn then?
I have one more. Are we planning on meeting in in December again, hopefully?
We do have it on the agenda to meet in December. We have our senior resource guide to go through.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
okay,
great.
that's true.
Did she say?
yes.
Same, regular time, regular.
Regular time.
Well, you'll put it on there. Alicia, you'll text us, won't you?
Yep, I'll send you guys a message.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, Sue wants to move that we adjourn.
Yes, I would. I move that we adjourn.
Second, Richard, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Right,
We're adjourned.
there you go.